The sun blazed down on Fifth Avenue, where luxury boutiques gleamed like temples of wealth. In the middle of this parade of opulence, a woman stood awkwardly near the entrance of a high-end cafe, her clothes worn out, her shoes dusty, and her eyes quietly observing the world that didn't seem to notice her. Her name was Emily Carter. Emily had once walked these streets dressed in silk, but today, her faded jeans and flannel shirt made her invisible to the rich. Or worse, an easy target. And that's exactly what Nathan Bradford, a sharply dressed hedge fund manager with a smirk permanently carved on his face, saw her as an inconvenience. He was just stepping out of his black Mercedes Maybach, sunglasses on, phone pressed to his ear. His voice rang out loud and obnoxious. "No, I'm not worried. Poor people just need to work harder, that's all. They've made peace with failure." Emily stood aside, not wanting to draw attention. But Nathan noticed her. He paused, looked her up and down with a sneer, and waved his hand as if swatting a fly. "Ma'am," he scoffed loud enough for others around to hear, "this isn't a soup kitchen. Maybe try 2 blocks down where the rest of your tribe is hanging out." Some people chuckled awkwardly. Others looked away. But Emily? She didn't flinch. She looked him straight in the eyes and said calmly, "You know, it's funny how quickly fortunes can change. I'd be careful if I were you." Nathan burst into laughter. "Is that a threat or a riddle? Look, I've got more money in my cufflinks than you've seen in your life. Let's not pretend we're equals." The crowd outside the cafe began to murmur, sensing the tension. But Emily didn't raise her voice. Instead, she offered a gentle smile that somehow unsettled Nathan more than any insult could. "Enjoy your coffee," she said, turning away. "What? Wait," Nathan called out, now feeling a strange discomfort settle in his chest. Who was this woman? Why did her calmness feel so ominous? Because there's something terrifying about someone who knows they've already won, especially when the world believes they've lost. As Emily walked away, a stranger nearby whispered to his friend, "That's Emily Carter, isn't it? Wasn't she that millionaire tech founder who disappeared after her company collapsed?" Nathan heard it and froze. His grip on his coffee cup tightened. His phone slipped from his hand and cracked on the pavement. He stared at Emily's back, a shadow of unease growing in his gut. No way. That can't be her, right? But it was. And what Nathan didn't know was that Emily had already set in motion a series of events that would shake the very foundation of his empire. Because Emily didn't just walk away. She walked toward something. And Nathan? He had just insulted the wrong woman. The question now wasn't if he would regret it, it was when. What happens when the person you mock turns out to hold your fate in her hands? Stay with me, because what comes next will leave you speechless. Emily Carter wasn't always the quiet woman standing in the shadow of wealth and privilege. Once, she too had been part of the glittering world of high society, her name known in boardrooms across Silicon Valley, her ideas revered by the tech giants. Years ago, Emily founded Carter Tech, a pioneering software company that revolutionized data analytics. It wasn't just a startup, it was a movement. Her algorithm changed the way corporations interacted with data, and soon, she was a millionaire, living in a penthouse overlooking the city's skyline. But with great success came an even greater target. The more her company grew, the more enemies she made. There were whispers about her rise to the top. Was she really self-made? Was it all too good to be true? Rumors began to swirl about her mysterious connections, and as with any successful woman, there were those who resented her for not fitting the mold. It wasn't until the financial collapse of 2018 that everything came crashing down. Emily's algorithm, her lifeblood, had been sold to a competitor, someone with more power, more reach, and a lot less scruples. In a matter of months, Carter Tech folded. The media had a field day, portraying her as the fallen angel of Silicon Valley. No one knew the truth behind the betrayal. Not even Nathan Bradford. Nathan had been a part of that world. As an heir to an influential investment firm, he had never known a day of hardship. Wealth came easily to him, a world where he could buy anything and anyone he wanted. It was this same arrogance that led him to mock Emily that fateful day. He had no idea who she truly was. As Emily walked away from Nathan that afternoon, she wasn't just a woman passing through Fifth Avenue. She was a force. And while Nathan was busy laughing, taking pride in his riches, Emily was making a phone call that would change everything. She dialed a number she hadn't dialed in years, one she had hoped to never use again. The line rang twice before it was picked up by a familiar voice. "Emily? Is everything okay?" the voice asked. "Not yet," she replied. "But it will be." This wasn't just about payback. It wasn't even about Nathan's public humiliation. Emily had built her company from the ground up, only to watch it crumble. And she wasn't the type to let the rich play the game without consequences. Nathan had made the mistake of mocking someone he didn't understand. And Emily wasn't just going to take it. She was going to show him the price of his arrogance. Back in his high-rise apartment, Nathan was still trying to process what had happened. The woman he had mocked, who he had dismissed as just another poor soul, was a mystery he couldn't solve. His mind raced, recalling everything he knew about Emily Carter. He'd heard the stories. She'd been one of the brightest minds in tech, and then she just disappeared. No one really knew why. Some speculated that she had gone bankrupt, others whispered about shady deals. Nathan's pride, though, wouldn't allow him to admit that he had just insulted someone of real significance. He dismissed it, until he received an email that would send his world spinning. From Emily Carter. Subject: Time's up. The subject line alone was enough to make Nathan's heart drop. He opened the email, his eyes scanning the contents. "Dear Mr. Bradford, I trust you remember me. I'm the woman you mocked earlier today. But I'm not just the poor woman on the street corner, Mr. Bradford. In fact, I'm someone with the power to make your next few weeks incredibly difficult, just as you made my life unbearable back when you tore down Carter Tech. Your little joke will cost you more than you can imagine. Best regards, Emily Carter." Nathan's face drained of color. He stared at the email for what seemed like an eternity. He knew what Emily was capable of. He knew the power of her mind, the influence she once wielded. But now? He had no idea what he had just triggered. He clicked open the link attached to the email, which led him to a cryptic video file. Hesitant, he hit play. In the video, Emily sat calmly at a desk, dressed impeccably, far from the woman he had just mocked. Her eyes were steady, her gaze piercing, but there was no hint of anger in her expression. "Mr. Bradford," she began, her voice calm but deliberate, "I think you may have forgotten something important today. People like you don't often experience the consequences of your actions. But I'm here to remind you that nothing lasts forever, especially not arrogance." Emily continued, outlining a series of events she had set in motion that would soon take root in Nathan's world. A small move, a strategic maneuver, but one that would soon snowball, creating irreversible changes to his wealth and reputation. She ended the video with the warning: "I suggest you start looking over your shoulder. Because soon, Nathan, it won't just be me you'll be trying to escape." Nathan sat back in his chair, the weight of her words sinking in. This wasn't a prank. This was real. Emily had power. And now she was using it. Nathan's mind was in overdrive. The email, the video, it all felt like some kind of sick joke. But as the hours passed, doubt began to gnaw at him. Emily Carter wasn't some random woman. She wasn't some washed-up entrepreneur clinging to the last vestiges of a failed dream. No, this was someone who knew the game, someone who had the kind of influence that made even the most powerful people in New York flinch. The next morning, Nathan woke up to find his world starting to shift, slowly but unmistakably. His phone buzzed with notifications, stock prices plunging, his firm's biggest client pulling out of a multi-million-dollar deal, a lawsuit filed against his hedge fund for unethical trading practices. The pattern was too clear. These weren't coincidences. They were a direct response to something that had happened the day before. At first, Nathan thought it was all part of the usual high-stakes business world. He had plenty of enemies, people he had outbid, outsmarted, and outmaneuvered. But this felt different. He tried calling his assistant, but her line went straight to voicemail. A pit formed in his stomach. This wasn't just bad luck. It was as if someone was pulling the strings from the shadows. Someone who had access to information, to connections that even Nathan couldn't tap into. But it wasn't until later that day that Nathan realized the full scope of what was happening. As he walked into his luxury office tower, his head spinning with the morning's events, he was greeted by his lead lawyer, Jennifer Blake. She was in her mid-40s, sharp as a tack, and had been his right hand for years. But today, her expression was cold, her lips tight with concern. "Mr. Bradford," she began, her voice tight. "We've just received a subpoena from the SEC. It seems someone has tipped them off about some questionable transactions involving your firm." Nathan's heart dropped. "What do you mean? Questionable transactions?" Jennifer took a deep breath. "It's a pattern of market manipulation. They've connected it to the recent downturn in your firm's portfolio. If they dig deeper—" "I know what happens if they dig deeper," Nathan interrupted. "But I don't understand. This is a clean operation. I've built everything by the book." "I'm not sure," Jennifer said, her face a mask of disbelief. "But the timing, there's no way it's a coincidence." And that's when it hit him. Emily, the woman he had mocked, the woman he had thought was nothing more than a laughable figure in the crowd, had just struck a blow that could bring his empire to its knees. But how? How did she pull this off? The pieces slowly began to fall into place as Nathan reflected on the subtle threats hidden within her email. He wasn't just dealing with a disgruntled ex-CEO. He was up against someone with far greater resources than he had imagined. But just as the weight of the situation began to suffocate him, the twist revealed itself, a revelation so shocking that Nathan was left staring blankly at his phone, unable to comprehend the truth. An anonymous message pinged his device. "We've been watching. The deal you made with Carter Tech's competitor? It wasn't just a business move, Nathan. It was a betrayal. A personal one. You thought you got away with it, but you didn't count on Emily having the connections she does. You didn't count on her rebuilding her empire in the shadows." The message continued, outlining Emily's rise from the ashes after her company collapsed. She had secretly launched a new tech platform, Neurotech, which had quietly grown into a billion-dollar venture. She had forged alliances with some of the most powerful names in finance, politics, and tech. But her most significant move? Emily had meticulously exposed Nathan's involvement in her downfall, sourcing information, leaking it to the press, and making sure it reached the ears of those who mattered. Emily wasn't just playing the game. She was rewriting the rules. Nathan's mind raced as he realized the full extent of his miscalculation. Emily had already set everything in motion. And now he was caught in a trap, one that he could not escape from. Every deal he had worked for, every connection he had made, was now in jeopardy. But it wasn't over. Nathan still had power. He had money. He had influence. There had to be a way out of this, right? Desperation crept into his thoughts as he frantically dialed his most trusted associates, hoping to find a solution. But the calls went unanswered. That's when the second message arrived. "Nathan, I'm sure you think this is just a game, that you can buy your way out of this. But you're wrong. I've already spoken with the press. Tomorrow, the world will know the truth. And this time, there's no escaping it. Do you remember what you told me? Poor people need to work harder. Maybe you'll find out exactly what that means." Nathan's blood ran cold. The twist wasn't just a financial loss. It was a personal one. Emily had turned the tables on him in a way that he could never have predicted. She had become his worst nightmare, not just a competitor, but a ghost in the system, pulling strings that even Nathan couldn't untangle. As he sat there, paralyzed with the knowledge that Emily had completely outplayed him, he realized the true cost of his arrogance. The mocking words he had thrown at her that afternoon were now coming back to haunt him, tenfold. He thought of all the people who had looked up to him, trusted him, and believed in his success. He had built an empire, but Emily had dismantled it in a matter of hours, using nothing more than her mind and her connections. And worse still, he had no idea what her next move would be. Was he already too far gone? Was this the end? The answer would come soon enough. Nathan's mind was spinning. The more he tried to pull the pieces together, the more they slipped through his fingers. His empire was collapsing, but Emily, she wasn't just an ex-businesswoman getting revenge. No, she was a master tactician. This wasn't personal to her anymore. It was a calculated move, a chess game in which Nathan was the pawn. The media storm had already begun. The headlines blared his name, with phrases like corporate giant's dark secrets revealed and billion-dollar fraud. The fall of Nathan Bradford plastered across every major news outlet. But it wasn't just the public scandal that was damaging him. The real harm was in the quiet, ominous moves Emily had made behind the scenes. Every call Nathan made to his top allies and colleagues had been met with radio silence. One by one, his contacts, who once hung on his every word, were distancing themselves from him. This was more than just a corporate attack. Emily had strategically infiltrated every part of Nathan's life. From his closest partners to his legal team, Emily had planted seeds of doubt and fear that sprouted into a wildfire of betrayal. It wasn't just his business that was at risk. Nathan was losing everything. That night, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind reeling with the enormity of it all. He thought back to the email from Emily, to the mocking tone of her words. "I hope you understand now, Nathan, how easy it is to destroy someone who thinks they're untouchable." The more Nathan thought about it, the more a terrifying realization set in. Emily had anticipated every move. She knew he would retaliate. She knew he would attempt to leverage his wealth, power, and influence. And that's exactly why she didn't leave him any room to fight back. Every avenue he tried to pursue only led him deeper into the web she had spun. That's when the real urgency hit. Emily wasn't just playing to win. She was playing to break him completely. The next day, Nathan received an anonymous phone call that set the stage for the final confrontation. It was an unfamiliar voice on the other end, calm, deliberate, and cold. "Nathan Bradford," the voice began, "I hope you're ready for what's coming." His blood ran cold. He'd been warned, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. You see, Emily Carter isn't just doing this for revenge. She's making a statement. She's showing the world that even the richest, most powerful man can fall. She's doing what no one else had the courage to do. She's exposing the truth. The people you've trampled on, the lives you've ruined, they're all going to know what you've done. And you'll be left with nothing. The voice paused, letting the words sink in. "I think you'll find Emily is just getting started. But don't worry, Nathan. You're not alone in this. No one's going to help you. Not now, not ever." And with that, the line went dead. It was as if the ground beneath Nathan's feet had crumbled. The walls he had so carefully built around himself were gone, and Emily had ripped apart the very fabric of his identity. His reputation, his money, his power, everything was slipping through his fingers like sand. But it wasn't until later that night, as he tried to make one last desperate call to his lawyer Jennifer, that he learned just how deep the betrayal ran. Jennifer's voice was shaky when she answered. "Nathan, I don't know how to tell you this, but there's no way out. They've got everything. The SEC, the media, the investors, all of them are turning against you. I've been instructed to step back from your case." Nathan's stomach twisted into a knot.
"What?
"What do you mean? I've worked with you for years, Jennifer. You can't just—" "I'm sorry," she interrupted, her voice trembling. "Emily's influence is too strong now. She's got people in every department, every major corporation. There's no way we can fight this. It's over." And that was when Nathan realized just how powerful Emily had become. She wasn't just some disgruntled woman he had crossed. She had built a network of influence so vast that even the most powerful people in his life were turning their backs on him. He was no longer a giant. He was a casualty of a war he never saw coming. The final blow came when the news hit. Emily Carter had bought controlling shares of Bradford Enterprises. It wasn't just a financial move. It was a direct message to Nathan. She had taken everything. Every decision he had ever made, every connection he had ever cultivated, was now in her hands. Bradford Enterprises, the empire he had built with blood, sweat, and tears, was no longer his. It was Emily's now. The reporters were waiting outside the lobby of his office building the next morning, cameras flashing as Nathan stepped into the daylight. His suit felt heavier than ever, as if the weight of his failures was physically pressing down on him. It was a moment he had anticipated, just never like this. One reporter shouted over the noise, "Mr. Bradford, what are your thoughts on Emily Carter's takeover of your company and the allegations of fraud?" Nathan swallowed hard. The world was watching, and for the first time in his life, he realized he had no control over the narrative. No matter what he said, the truth was already out there. Emily had outsmarted him at every turn. His gaze shifted upward, the towering skyscraper behind him now a symbol of his downfall. It was no longer his. It had never been his. He had merely been a player in someone else's game. As he walked away from the reporters, his heart pounding with disbelief, Nathan realized the depth of Emily's power. She hadn't just defeated him in business, she had destroyed the very essence of who he thought he was. He had underestimated her. And now there was no going back. The final blow had landed. Nathan Bradford, once untouchable, was now a mere shell of the man he used to be. Emily Carter had not only taken his company, but had exposed the very core of his existence. Every luxury he had, every piece of power he wielded, had been stripped away. He wasn't just losing money, he was losing his identity, his reputation, his place in the world. But what hurt the most was the silence of it all, the empty feeling that he had been utterly forgotten. Even as he sat in his massive office, staring out at the city skyline, now overshadowed by Emily's victory, he could feel the weight of his solitude. No calls from former colleagues. No messages of support. He had been cast aside. In the days that followed, Nathan did everything he could to salvage his name. He made attempts to reach out to his loyal investors, but they were all now under Emily's influence. Every attempt was met with rejection, leaving him more desperate and broken. It wasn't just that they wouldn't help him, it was that they no longer cared. But there was something else Nathan hadn't considered: the lessons. Emily had outplayed him not just in business, but in life. She had given him a chance to look at his past mistakes, to reflect on how he had treated others, how he had used people as stepping stones on his path to greatness. And now, as he stood in the ruins of everything he had built, Nathan began to understand the true cost of his arrogance. It wasn't just money or power he had lost, it was the very thing that had driven his ambition in the first place: respect. Respect for himself, respect for others, and the kind of respect that can't be bought or taken by force. Meanwhile, Emily's life was thriving. Her name was everywhere, on news outlets, in interviews, on the covers of magazines. People called her a hero, a symbol of resilience. But Nathan knew her victory wasn't just about business. It was about justice. She had fought for the people he had wronged, for the countless lives he had exploited. And in the end, Emily was more than just a successful businesswoman. She was a living embodiment of the kind of power Nathan had once underestimated: the power of integrity, the power of doing what's right. As time passed, Nathan's downfall became a lesson to others. His story was shared across the world, becoming a cautionary tale for those who would do anything for wealth and power at the expense of others. His name was no longer associated with success, but with failure. He had been humbled, not by force, but by the sheer weight of his actions. Emily, on the other hand, stood tall and proud, her eyes set on the future. She had not only taken his empire, she had used it to build something better, something that benefited the people he had once ignored. And as for Nathan, he found himself constantly questioning the choices he had made. What had he truly gained in the end? Was it worth the pain, the sacrifice, the betrayal? He had everything, but now he realized he had nothing. This story of Nathan and Emily is a reminder that no matter how high you climb, the foundations you build your life on matter more than anything. Power built on greed, manipulation, and disregard for others always crumbles. But power built on integrity, resilience, and empathy, that is the kind of power that lasts. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Nathan's downfall was inevitable? What lessons do you think we can learn from his story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life lessons and powerful stories. Don't let arrogance or greed dictate your path. Let your values lead the way.